Hello again. Welcome back to our series of lessons on Solomon, his wisdom, his wealth, and his women. Today we're going to concentrate on women, that section of our lessons, and we'll be reading passages from the Song of Songs. So if you have your Bible, go ahead and turn to Song of Songs, and we'll start reading in just a few minutes. I want to put some context to Song of Songs and talk a little bit about Solomon and his writings, and especially his songs. So over in 1 Kings, when it talks about his life, you remember what we've done here is we've gone over Solomon's life, his kingship that occurred mostly when we were reading in 1 Kings. Then we covered his Proverbs, and then we went to Ecclesiastes, and today we're finishing up with Song of Songs. Over in 1 Kings, it tells us mostly about Solomon's wisdom and his wealth. It tells us a little bit about his women also. We know that he had over 700 wives, and he had 300 concubines. So he was around a lot of women. We also know that he wrote over 1,000 songs. So that's going to be important to us as we start on Song of Songs, because it's the only one that's recorded in the Bible. And so the thought there is that it is the best of the best. So of those 1,000 songs, the Song of Songs was probably the most well-known of all his songs. Now, another thing we need to remember is with songs, we also have music. Well, as you know, we have no music here. We only have words. So it's more like a poem than a song. So we're missing a key ingredient to this series of passages here, because we do not have the music. But nevertheless, we do have the words, which are going to be very important. So if you join me and turn your Bibles to Song of Songs, we'll start there. Now I'm using the New International Version. And so in this version, when the woman is speaking, it will say she. When the man is speaking, it will say he. And then there's going to be a chorus, and there it will say friends. So the Song of Songs, Solomon's Song of Songs, is a dialogue between three different characters here. There's a woman, there is a man, and then there is our friends that are also involved. Now, just to back up a little bit, this is a very unusual book in the Bible. We see no other book like Song of Songs. There are other books of poetry and other things like that, but there is no other book that is simply a dialogue primarily between a man and a woman about their love for each other, their eros love for each other. And so that's going to separate Song of Songs from pretty much any other passages or any other books we have in the Bible. So let's go ahead and begin. And as usual, we'll read a little bit, and then we'll stop and discuss what we've read, and then we'll go back and read some more. So we start in Song of Songs, chapter 1. Let me get my glasses here. Solomon's Song of Songs. She. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is more delightful than wine. Pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is like perfume poured out. No wonder the young women love you. Take me away with you. Let us hurry. Let the king bring me into his chambers. Friends, we rejoice and delight in you. We will praise your love more than wine. She. How right they are to adore you. Dark am I, yet lovely, daughters of Jerusalem. Dark like the tents of Kedar, like the tent curtains of Solomon. Do not stare at me because I am dark, because I am darkened by the sun. My mother's sons were angry with me and made me take care of the vineyards. My own vineyard I had to neglect. Tell me, you whom I love, where you graze your flocks and where you rest your sheep at midday. Why should I be like a veiled woman beside the flocks of your friends? If you do not know, most beautiful of women, these are the friends. If you do not know, most beautiful of women, follow the tracks of the sheep and graze your young goats by the tents of the shepherds. I liken you, my darling, to a mare among Pharaoh's chariot horses. Your cheeks are beautiful with earrings, your neck with strings of jewels. We will make you earrings of gold studded with silver. While the king was at his table, my perfume spread its fragrance. My beloved is to me a sachet of myrrh, resting between my breasts. My beloved is to me a cluster of henna blossoms from the vineyards of En-Gedi. How beautiful you are, my darling. Oh, how beautiful, your eyes are doves. How handsome you are, my beloved. Oh, how charming, and our bed is verdant. The beams of our house are cedars, our rafters are firs. I am a rose of Sharon, a lily of the valley. Like a lily among thorns is my darling among the young women. Like an apple tree among the trees of the forest is my beloved among the young men. I delight to sit in his shade, and his fruit is sweet to my taste. Let him lead me to the banquet hall, and let his banner over me be love. Strengthen me with raisins, and refresh me with apples, for I am faint with love. His left arm is under my head, and his right arm embraces me. Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you, by the gazelles and by the does of the field, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires. Listen, my beloved. Look, here he comes, leaping across the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Look, there he stands behind our wall, gazing through the windows, peering through the lattice. My beloved spoke and said to me, Arise, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me. See, the winter is past, the rains are over and gone. Flowers appear on the earth, the season of singing has come. The cooing of doves is heard in our land. The fig tree forms its early fruit, the blossoming vines spread their fragrance. Arise, come, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me. My dove in the clefts of the rock in the this is he speaking. My dove in the clefts of the rock, in the hiding places on the mountainside, show me your face. Let me hear your voice. For your voice is sweet and your face is lovely. Catch for us the foxes, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, our vineyards that are in bloom. My beloved is mine and I am his. This is she. My beloved is mine and I am his. He browses among the lilies until the day breaks and the shadows flee. Turn, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or like a young stag on the rugged hills. All right, let's stop there for a minute. Again, we start to see the structure of this song is one where we start out with the woman talking about the man. And as you can see, there are many compliments each other. The man compliments the woman compliments the man. And we see here the friends are kind of in the middle like a chorus. And they're talking to, mostly they're talking to the woman, but at the first they're talking to the man. So again, what we see here in this dialogue between this man and the woman is a passionate love for each other, spoken through words. And the woman is looking at the man, and she is describing his. And we'll see later she describes his physical nature. But she's really telling him of the deep passion she has for him and of her gift of herself to him. Likewise, he's telling her, and we'll see this later, today it'll be fairly humorous to us how he describes some of her physical appearances. But he's describing her also in a very complimentary manner and sharing his love for her. So we know that this woman has got a really good suntan because she's been working in the fields. She tells us about that. And his response to that is, I compare you, I liken you, my darling, to a mare among Pharaoh's chariot horses. So again, strong and beautiful. And again, we've talked about this in other verses and other lectures we've had on Solomon. Wealth in that day and time was a lot in a lot of the assets were in livestock. They were in land and crops. They were in metals. They were in buildings and things like that, much like today. And so Solomon was very wealthy. So he knew the best of the best. And so when he talks about chariots and horses and things like that, he compares her to Pharaoh's, who probably had the best of all horses and chariots at the time. So we get this dialogue, and then first it's more a soliloquy of the woman and the man, and then it's a response. The woman will say something, the man will respond to that, and they really are complimenting each other and comparing each other to flowers and to perfumes and to things like that. Now, one of the things that I wanted to discuss is also how he talks about her. So when we see in chapter 2, verse 16, my beloved is mine and I am his. He browses among the lilies until the day breaks and the shadows flee. Turn, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or like a young stag on rugged hills. So again, she's looking to him and saying to him, come to me. Now, over in chapter 4, we begin a dialogue from the man. So I want to read that because this is fairly interesting. So in chapter 4, this is the man speaking. How beautiful you are, my darling. Oh, how beautiful. Your eyes behind your veil are doves. Your hair is like a flock of goats descending from the hills of Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep just shorn, coming up from the washing. Each has its twin, and not one of them is alone. Your lips are like a scarlet ribbon. Your mouth is lovely. Your temples behind your veil are like the halves of a pomegranate. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built with courses of stone. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. Your breasts are like two fawns, like twin fawns of a gazelle that browse among the lilies. Until the day breaks and the shadows flee, I will go to the mountain of myrrh and to the hills of incense. You are altogether beautiful, my darling. There is no flaw in you. Come with me from Lebanon, my bride. Come with me from Lebanon. Descend from the crest of Amana, from the top of Senir, from the summit of Hermon, from the lion's den and the mountain's haunt of leopards. You have stolen my heart, my sister, my bride. You have stolen my heart. With one glance of your eyes, with one jewel of your necklace, how delightful is your love, my sister, my bride. How much more pleasing is your love than wine, and the fragrance of your perfume more than any spice. Your lips drop sweetness as the honeycomb, my bride. Milk and honey are under your tongue. The fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon. You are a garden locked up, my sister, my bride. You are a spring enclosed, a sealed fountain. Your plants are an orchard of pomegranates, with choice fruits, with henna and nard and saffron, calamus and cinnamon, with every kind of incense tree, with myrrh and aloes and all the finest spices. You are a garden fountain, a well of flowing water streaming down from Lebanon. So this is the man speaking to the woman and complimenting her and telling us and describing in poetic terms her physical nature. Now what I find kind of amusing here, you might not, but I do, is that he describes her physical nature in terms of livestock. So he uses, first he says her hair is like a flock of goats descending from the hills of Gilead. That's kind of interesting to describe hair as a flock of goats. What's even more interesting, he describes her teeth. Her teeth are like a flock of sheep just shorn, coming up from the washing. So in that case, they would have been very white, I would imagine. Further, he says, each has its twin. Not one of them is alone. So we know that she had all her teeth, and it appears they were pretty white, because he describes them as a flock of sheep just shorn, coming up from the washing. Then he talks about her neck like the Tower of David. And then he says, your breasts are like two fawns, like twin fawns of a gazelle that browse among the lilies. Again, that's a fairly odd characterization of breasts, but for Solomon, I guess two fawns browsing among the lilies was a very attractive feature. And then he goes on and he closes this by saying, you are altogether beautiful, my darling. There is no flaw in you. So it appears physically the woman here is very beautiful and she is very flawless. Then he goes on and he talks about her being like a spring enclosed, a sealed fountain. And he talks about her and describes her as a garden. And in verse 15, chapter 4, you are a garden fountain, a well of flowing water streaming down from Lebanon. In verse 12, you are a garden locked up, my sister, my bride. You are a spring enclosed, a sealed fountain. Now the question is, why would you describe your love as a garden? Well, a garden produces fruit, right? Produces fruit and vegetables and things to eat, things of nourishment. So let's think about that a little bit, about a love between two people and how that does produce nourishment. And so it's like if a good love between a man and a woman produces not only children, would be a natural result of that kind of love, but also it produces other kinds of products also. So a true love between a man and a woman is a joy to behold. Now, he doesn't say that, that's my words. But when you see, and it doesn't matter how old the couple is, they can be young. Yesterday I saw a young couple holding hands during a meeting, which was kind of unusual because it was a professional meeting, but you could tell they were very much in love and they were holding hands. And it was refreshing. And then as you move through life, you see that kind of love matures and becomes, in my mind, it becomes a deeper love and a more resilient love. And we're going to see that a little bit as we continue reading here. So let's continue our reading and let's go over to chapter 6. So we're in chapter 6 now, and we're still having the dialogue between the man and the woman. And here the friends come in and say, where has your beloved gone, most beautiful of women? Which way did your beloved turn, that we may look for him with you? She, my beloved has gone down to his garden, to the bed of spices, to browse in the gardens, and to gather lilies. I am his beloved's, and my beloved is mine. He browses among the lilies. He, you are as beautiful as Tirzah, my darling, as lovely as Jerusalem, as majestic as troops with banners. Turn your eyes from me, they overwhelm me. Your hair is like a flock of goats descending from Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep coming up from the washing. Each has its twin, none of them is missing. Your temples behind your veil are like the halves of a pomegranate. 60 queens there may be, and 80 concubines, and virgins beyond number. But my dove, my perfect one, is unique, the only daughter of her mother, the favorite of the one who bore her. The young women saw her and called her blessed. The queens and concubines praised her. Friends, who is this that appears like the dawn, fair as the moon, bright as the sun, majestic as the stars in procession? He. I went down to the grove of nut trees to look at the new growth in the valley, to see if the vines had budded or the pomegranates were in bloom. Before I realized it, my desire set me among the royal chariots of my people. Come back, O Shulamite. Come back, that we may gaze on you. He. Why would you gaze on the Shulamite as on the dance of Mahanaim? How beautiful your sandaled feet, O prince's daughter. Your graceful legs are like jewels, the work of an artist's hands. Your navel is a rounded goblet that never lacks blended wine. Your waist is a mound of wheat encircled by lilies. Your breasts are like two fawns, like twin fawns of a gazelle. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Your eyes are the pools of Heshbon by the gates of Bath Rabbim. Your nose is like the tower of Lebanon, looking toward Damascus. Your head crowns you like Mount Carmel. Your hair is like royal tapestry. The king is held captive by its tresses. How beautiful you are, and how pleasing, my love, with your delights. Your stature is like that of the palm, and your breasts like clusters of fruit. I said, I will climb the palm tree. I will take hold of its fruit. May your breasts be like clusters of grapes on the vine, the fragrance of your breath like apples, and your mouth like the best wine. She. May the wine go straight to my beloved, flowing gently over lips and teeth. I belong to my beloved, and his desire is for me. Come, my beloved, let us go to the countryside. Let us spend the night in the villages. Let us go early to the vineyards to see if the vines have budded, if their blossoms have opened, and if the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. The mandrakes send out their fragrance, and at our door is every delicacy, both new and old, that I have stored up for you. So again, we see this dialogue between the man and the woman. Again, a lot of descriptions of her physical nature. And then here near the end of this series of verses, they talk about basically the consummation of their love, where they will give each other to each other. And then we will finish up the Song of Songs by reading the last few verses here, which are going to be important because they kind of give us a completeness of this love and a contentment with the love between this man and this woman. So now we're in chapter 8, verse 1, and this is the woman speaking. If only you were to me like a brother who was nursed at my mother's breast. Then if I found you outside, I would kiss you, and no one would despise me. I would lead you and bring you to my mother's house, she who has taught me. I would give you spiced wine to drink, the nectar of my pomegranates. His left arm is under my head, and his right arm embraces me. Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires. Who is this coming up from the wilderness, leaning on her beloved? She. Under the apple tree I roused you. There your mother conceived you. There she who was in labor gave you birth. Place me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm. For love is as strong as death, its jealousy unyielding as the grave. It burns like blazing fire, like a mighty flame. Many waters cannot quench love, rivers cannot sweep it away. If one were to give all the wealth of one's house for love, it would be utterly scorned. Friends, we have a little sister, and her breasts are not yet grown. What shall we do for our sister on the day she is spoken for? If she is a wall, we will build towers of silver on her. If she is a door, we will enclose her with panels of cedar. I am a wall, and my breasts are like towers. Thus I have become in his eyes like one bringing contentment. Solomon had a vineyard in Baal Hamon. He let out his vineyard to tenants. Each was to bring for its fruit 1,000 shekels of silver. But my own vineyard is mine to give. The 1,000 shekels are for you, Solomon, and 200 are for those who tend its fruit. You who dwell in the gardens with friends in attendance, let me hear your voice. Come away, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or like a young stag on the spice-laden mountains. And so we see the Song of Songs ending with the man and the woman speaking to each other. She's saying, thus, I've become in his eyes like one bringing contentment. And he's saying, and his ending verses are, you who dwell in the gardens with friends in attendance, let me hear your voice. So what he's saying is her voice, her presence in his life is very important. And she's saying, in the same way, she brings him contentment. So together they are whole. And she at the end says, come away, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or a young stag on the spice-laden mountains. So again, this ending verse in Song of Songs, she's describing and saying to him, come away with me like a gazelle or young stag. So again, a swiftness is there. So what can we learn from the Song of Songs? Well, one of the things we have to remember is we're limited. If this is a song, we only have the words. And we know, in many cases, the tune, the music, is what provides the emotion behind a song. So we have to understand the context of that. The second thing we need to remember is this is probably the most famous of Solomon's 1,005 songs that he wrote. So, if knowing that, probably we should study it more than we do. I would surmise that not many of us have read Song of Songs many times. It's not something we go back to. Now, we do think of Song of Songs when we think of romance and we think of passion and love between a man and a woman, and that is very appropriate. But again, the context of the Song of Songs is this dialogue between a man and a woman. They're sharing their passionate, erotic love for each other, and then it's almost like a musical and a play where there's a response by their friends, and their friends are helping them become aware of certain things. So, in closing, one of the things we want to remember is that Solomon was very talented. He had a great array of skill sets. And one of his greatest talents was his writing and his creativity in literature and with words and with music. What we have here is probably one of the best songs that he wrote. Song of Songs, the meaning of that is this is the best of the best. So again, we can appreciate his understanding of the love between a man and a woman, although it is fairly ironic that he had 700 wives and 300 concubines. So again, this dialogue is between one man and one woman. On the other hand, Solomon had many women that he apparently had relations with. We've got a couple more lessons, so we're going to close this with encouraging you to continue reading your Bible. We've gone through the life of Solomon. Started with in Samuel with his birth, and we'll review that a little bit in the next lesson. We went through his kingship in the First Kings, and then we started on his Proverbs and his words of wisdom, and we finished with basically his poetry. So again, thank you for this time that you've shared with us, and look forward to seeing you in our next lesson. Thank you.